Now, some corals are very, very easy to keep. I mean things like bubble corals, leather corals, zoanthus corals, corellas, recordias, and they don't need a fancy setup. Now, other corals are what we call number 2 corals, number 1 being the easy corals. Number 2 corals are things like your euphyllias, your cataphyllias, your clams, that sort of stuff. They're harder to keep. And then we've got what we call number 3 corals, things like your gonioporas, things like your SPS corals. Now, if you're a beginner, you should stick only with number 1 corals, and then as you get more confident, move to number 2 corals, and not until you're far more confident would I move to number 3 corals. So I would say in year 1 of fish keeping, stick with number 1s. In year 2 of fish keeping, coral keeping, move to number 2s, and in year 3 you can consider moving to number 3 corals. But what I've noticed is happening in the industry is people are, let's say a number 1 coral is for race car drivers. So they go and buy themselves a race car, or the equivalent of the best skimmer, the best lights, auto dosing, the whole works. And this does give you a far better chance of being able to keep harder to keep corals. So let's say if you want to go fast, having a race car is a really good idea. But the thing is, if you don't have the skills to drive the race car, you're still gonna crash it. Because race cars crash if the driver is not a race car driver. So my opinion is, for the first year of your fish keeping or coral keeping, stick with zoanthus, stick with leathers, stick with all your easy peasy corals to keep. Then as you get more experienced and you learn to drive your car, regardless of whether it's a old Laser or a brand new Ferrari race car, you still have to hone your coral keeping skills, because essentially it is not your tank that keeps your corals, it's you. The same as it's not the Ferrari that gets you around the track, it's your skills. So even if you go and buy all the best equipment, if you don't have the skills to look after the animals that you choose, you're still gonna crash them. Just the same as if you go and run around the race course in a Ferrari and you don't have the skills to do that, you're probably gonna crash the Ferrari. Once again, make a good YouTube video, be good for any onlookers that might be entertained by your $1 million misfortune. But it's really in your best interest to try to keep animals that suit your environment you're offering, but very much also your skill level. And buying better equipment doesn't necessarily improve your skill level. It certainly does give you a better chance, and I definitely recommend you do that, but I don't recommend you rely on it. Otherwise, you're going to be full of false confidence. Anyway, give us your opinion. Are you a race car driver? Or are you a noob with a Ferrari?